Sabbatical comes from the word Sabbath. In the Bible, the seventh day was the Sabbath day. It's the day not to work, it's to rest and to worship. And so the way that translates into a sabbatical then is there is a time, in a lot of churches do this for pastors, so there is, after several years of ministry, you can step away from that and have this extended period of time, in my case 2 months, of resting, of stepping away from pastoral ministry, having another opportunity for service or for study or for just getting away from the normal burdens of work and ministry, so you can come back refreshed and ready for a new season. So we spent our sabbatical in Oxford, England. The reason we chose there, well, first we wanted to get away. We wanted to actually have a real sabbatical and not have the temptations to kind of slip into peeking in on things. So we wanted actually to be away. And Toria and I are both Anglophiles. We love traveling to England and English culture, and so that was why England. And then we wanted a place where I could have a place where I could study in my field of ministry, as well as be a part of a community that was like a worshiping community. And so Wycliffe Hall, with its library, with its student body, kind of it ticked off all those boxes. And I had been to Oxford. I spent a week there in college 19 years ago, and fell in love with the city. Tori and I had spent an anniversary several years ago in Cambridge, kind of a sister town, a sister university, and we loved it there, and so we wanted to kind of share this scene together in Oxford. And so Wycliffe Hall and Oxford kind of ticked all those boxes for us. I think it went about perfectly, with the exception of us getting a stomach bug one week and missing the flight at the very end. It really was great. I mean, it was a good time to really rest. I felt I was able to really be rejuvenated. It was a great time with our family together. We were able to do all these things that we might not ever have a chance to do again. We could go off and do these things together as a family without me having to worry about, the sermon that I hadn't finished, or the emails that I hadn't yet responded to. That wasn't there, and so we could just kind of be present together. I was able to do the kind of studying and a little bit of writing and some thinking that I wanted to do. So it really was what we had hoped it would be. Mm-hmm. The first full day we were here, we were there, we got coffee and breakfast at, it's called Costa's. It's kind of like their Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts type of thing. And everyone had slept well, so there wasn't jet lag that was really hurting us at that point. And we ordered our food, sat down, and I thought, wow, we have 2 months ahead of us, and we're enjoying ourselves now, and 2 months to really settle in and explore, and it feels like this is a good time that we need, and we're here now. Well, I was a visitor at Wycliffe Hall, which is part of Oxford University. So it's mainly a training. It's kind of like a seminary, what we would call in America, but it's part of the university. And so I was there on campus on Mondays through Thursdays, and I would get there, and I had my spot in the library that faced south, so the sun was always kind of shining on me, and it looked out over this lawn. And the university park was right across the street, and so whenever I wanted to, I could leave the library. I can go for a walk to the park. From the park, there were these walking paths through pastures and along the river. Just an ideal place just to walk in a beautiful place. And for me, that's really, really restful. And so I was just to do that without having to be anywhere else. There was no, that's what I was there for. I wasn't, I didn't have to feel guilty about doing that. I also got to, I read a bunch of things, but I read some books that were just for my soul, not for any project, just for my own benefit. So I could read that, go for a walk, and then come back and sit, and then um, meet and talk to people there. And I think all that together, that kind of leisurely time just to be and to walk and to pray and to sit was for me was very restful. So I think we were there at the exact right time to really enjoy our time there without all of the heaviest precautions of COVID. So they had recently come out of their third hard lockdown, and by like lockdown, like you can't leave your house but once a day, um, and they were at very high vaccination rates, and so it was pretty wide open. There were a lot of places did not require a mask, and it was quite coming from Chicago and our kind of long season of restrictions. It was very nice to be out of that, and I approve of all the restrictions for the sake of protecting people, but it was for the experience of kind of being over there and not being kind of shut in or restricted in what we could do. It was really nice. At the very end of our time there, things started to change with the Omicron and just the increase in cases. So there were some more tighter restrictions, but overall it was a very refreshing time to be out from under the worst of it. So we went to St. Ebbe's Church. It's a Church of England church in the city center. The church is like 800 years old or more. The building itself is, I don't know, a couple hundred years old. So it feels very English like that. It's an evangelical church. The pastor is Vaughn Roberts, who is a fairly well published person. As someone I had met a number of years ago here in Chicago. He's friends with John Dennis, the senior pastor of Holy Trinity, and so it was an easy connection to make. And it was wonderful. It was Vaughn. He took me out for tea one day. He pastored me. The people were wonderful. They were friendly. The church is flourishing and is lively. They have a great heart for the gospel. So it was really great to be at a great church, and for me not to be in charge of anything. I didn't have to. There's nothing for me to worry about. We just kind of we could show up, and so it was a really good 2 months for us to worship there at St. Ebbe's. Yeah. Maybe the biggest thing I've brought back with my rhythms is I realized how nice it was to be able on days with our family on like Fridays and Saturdays to be able to do our family things together without having any burden of work that was on top of me. And so what I've done now is I've restructured how I spend my days now to try to kind of do everything I can to finish that. So when I'm off and we're doing things together as a family, I really am off. I brought a stack of books with me that I hadn't finished yet. So I read through those. I had some kind of categories that were kind of projects, things I want to might do in the future for ministry that I needed to kind of prepare ahead of time. So there's some reading for that. And there's some reading just for my soul. And so I would kind of read from all those categories. What I was most hopeful to read, or most eager to read, were a few books that I had heard people talk about many times, but had never read. Some classics from a few decades ago. And so one on revival, like how the Lord can have these seasons of really pouring out His blessing, His grace on the church for our for conversions, for our growth in the knowledge of Christ. A really good book on that, and then a book on evangelism in the early church and how that happened. And so I wanted to read about evangelism in general, not really techniques or methods, but just kind of the bigger picture things. And so I read those books to that end, and was really, really blessed by it. From my reading, I really wrestled with the necessity of prayer, both private, but really especially corporate prayer for the Lord to really work in a church, or in a movement. And I certainly I pray. I have always prayed, but I realized that my own prayer life was anemic to some degree, and that corporately, maybe we should reform some of the structures of praying together. And so what I have been excited about is a monthly prayer service where we'll meet in the evening on a Sunday evening and pray, and we will pray as long as we want to pray. I'm looking forward to launching that, hopefully in the next few weeks or months. I'm also really excited about a new counseling ministry, which will involve three components, where pastoral counseling is what I do, some of the things that I write or the videos that the 3 minutes on that we make, counseling each other, where we will have some training for our people to learn how do you have the just normal conversations that are encouraging. How do you listen well to people who are struggling, and we're all struggling? How do you do that? How do you do that skillfully? And then professional counseling, where we will partner with an organization to be kind of our network of licensed therapists. So if you are, from marriage problems to depression, trauma, the whole gamut. We're going to grease the wheels to getting you the help that you need. So I'm really excited about that. It's a lot of Doctor Who, Top Gear. The boys discovered Mr. Bean, and then the Great British Bake Off. There was a bunch of that. So it was a very English media consumption. Yeah.